All right, so tonight we return to Pilgrim's Progress in a section entitled The Enchanted Ground. And here's what we're going to do. You may notice if you look at this section, it's relatively short. And roughly the last third of it actually belongs in the next section. It's almost as though Bunyan started the next section in this one. And he really should have just kind of put that in the next. That they're tied together, obviously, as you'll see. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through the section entitled The Enchanted Ground down to the place where really the next section begins. And I will just continue on, however much time that we have, till we get to the end of our time. And then we'll pick up the rest of the next section entitled Memories of Faithful in our next session. So we'll start and finish Enchanted Ground, and then start into Memories of Faithful. We'll call that part one, and then we'll finish the rest of it, Lord willing, next week. I saw then in my dream that they, that is Christian and hopeful, went till they came into a certain country whose air naturally tended to make one drowsy if he came a stranger into it, meaning if he hadn't been there before. And here hopeful began to be very dull and heavy of sleep. Wherefore he said unto Christian, I do now begin to grow so drowsy that I can scarcely hold up mine eyes. Let us lie down here and take a nap. By no means, said the other, Christian, lest sleeping we never wake more. Why, my brother, sleep is sweet to the laboring man. We may be refreshed if we take a nap. Do you not remember that one of the shepherds bade us beware of the enchanted ground? He meant by that we should beware of sleeping. Wherefore let us not sleep as others do, but let us watch and be sober. And you'll notice at the end of that second paragraph that there is a reference to 1 Thessalonians chapter 5. Paul writes these words starting in verse 1, 1 Thessalonians 5. Now concerning the times and the season, brothers, you have no need to have anything written to you, for you yourselves are fully aware that the day of the Lord will come like a thief in the night. While people are saying there is peace and security, quote unquote, then sudden destruction will come upon them as labor pains come upon a pregnant woman, and they will not escape. But you are not in darkness, brothers, for that day to surprise you like a thief. For you are all children of light, children of the day. We are not of the night or of the darkness. Here's the verse. So then let us not sleep as others do, but let us keep awake and be sober. For those who sleep, sleep at night, and those who get drunk are drunk at night. But since we belong to the day, let us be sober, having put on the breastplate of faith and love, and for a helmet the hope of salvation. Paul is writing, you remember, to a group of people who are concerned that the Lord passed them by, that he had returned, but they had missed it. And Paul's writing to them to assure them, no, that's not the case. He has not, in fact, come back. And even if he did, he would have taken you, nonetheless. But make no mistake about it, as Paul is trying to say, this is something, when he does come, that is going to be obvious to the whole world. It's not going to be the kind of thing that is going to be hidden to just a few. In fact, it's somewhat ironical that Paul writes this letter to these people. If indeed Christ had returned, then Paul missed it too. So his writing the letter is designed to give assurance, but it's also designed to pass along a warning, and I just read it to you. And that warning is that while we wait for the coming of the Lord, which will come at some point, nonetheless, we must remain awake and sober and prepared and observant of what we see taking place around us. We must not grow drowsy in the times and somehow think that that's acceptable. We must be awake and alert. Well, that's the point that Bunyan is making in The Enchanted Ground. This word enchanted, we have a tendency to use it in the Disney-esque sense of something magical, something with some sort of miraculous sense to it. You know, the enchanted castle or the enchanted forest or the enchanted whatever. right? That Disney-esque sense of it being somewhat magical. Well, that's not the sense that Bunyan's using it. As we've seen so very often, the words we find in our text is not necessarily the definition, or at least the modern definition is not the one he's using. In this case, the word he's using, which would fit with what Paul is writing, is more of a place that is comfortable, pleasing, easy. You know, the sort of place that one would find himself not really having much care in the world, just sort of like, this is good, I'm glad to be here, it's nice, it's comfortable. And he pictures hopeful wanting to take a nap in this place, actually lie down and sleep here, because his concerns are evaporated, if you will. And so he's in this kind of a place. So Bunyan is here painting a picture of a time in the life of a pilgrim, those who are traveling to see the Lord, a time when life is easy, good, no real troubles. Again, notice the contrast of this to some of the sections we've seen in the past where Christian and hopeful have found themselves in deep trouble, right? Where they've wandered off the path because they thought the path was better and they wound up in the castle of despair, or they wander off the wrong path by flatterer and wind up in a net, those sorts of things. So they've come to a sort of a place, a lull in all of that, and they now are living, or they're now in a place where, well, hey, things are good. And the obvious parallel, of course, that is being made is that sense of lethargy that can come in the times of life where there's nothing really pressing against us. And what's counterintuitive about that to us as humans, not to God, but to us, is that really it is a time in which faith is not important. In the sense of, there's really nothing that I need to trust God for. I've got everything I need. I'm doing good. I'm in a fine place. I don't know who said this. I don't even know if it's apocryphal, but someone once said at one time that the seeds of faith grow best in the soil of difficulty. We don't grow faith in times when everything is copacetic, when everything's good. I mean, after all, what do we need God for when things are good, right? And so our God understands this. And so while it might be that he will bless us with times in which we are not being pressed in on every side, the fact is that those are dangerous times. We might not think so. We might think, no, the goal is to get to a place of ease and comfort, right? But if we're really careful in our thinking, we would recognize, no, wait a minute, those are actually dangerous times because it's easy to drift away. This is why you see so many warnings in the New Testament, particularly by Jesus himself, about those who have wealth, those who are rich, those who have comfortable, easy lives because they have everything. It's difficult for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven, are we not told? Why? Is it because their wealth prevents them from coming in? Or is it because the wealth can produce circumstances which make it such that they don't need to trust in God, but they trust in themselves? The rich young ruler is an excellent example of this. And he's confronted by this very reality. And he becomes a parable, a living parable, to the point. Now, I will have you notice something here. This little discussion of the enchanted ground, you will notice, is just a couple of paragraphs in length. Bunyan doesn't give a great deal of effort to this. You've seen previous sections where you see massive amounts of material written about the particular thing that Bunyan's trying to get across. But he uses just a small little section here. And let me suggest to you a reason why. Bunyan lived in a very different day than we do. Now that should be obvious, right? Living in the 1600s is very different from living in the 2000s or beyond the 2000s. This is a very different time than his day. In his day, life was hard for almost everyone. For almost everyone, life was hard. You had to farm your own food. You had to make your own clothing. You had to build your own house. You had to protect yourself against everything that would come against you, yourself. You had to work all the time. Disease and death were everywhere. It is estimated that 25% of children born in the 1600s died shortly after birth, and roughly the same amount of mothers died in childbirth. We've been able to smash that number down to very small numbers. Even in Kenya, it's not that high. And so they lived in a very hard time. So I imagine that Bunyan, in writing this, says, well, you know what, I really need to address the reality that there will be some who will find easy life and then drift away because of that. But it's a short section because for his day, it's like, okay, that's not going to happen that much. But I'll put it in because it's necessary. Frankly, I think if Bunyan were living in the 21st century and was writing this allegory, I suspect that this particular section would be very much longer. And he would be warning about a lot of things that come as a result of what the kind of environment we now live in. I mean, let's be honest. We are tremendously rich compared to someone living in the 16th century. Today, you don't have to farm your own food unless you want to. And it's a 2-minute drive, probably, give or take, to your supermarket, where you can buy virtually any food you could think up, even if it doesn't grow around here, right? Even if they ship it in from Chile, you can still buy it. And isn't it interesting that we often go to the supermarket and we wonder why they don't have a certain thing in stock? Well, this is Walmart, for Pete's sake. They should have it, right? We've become accustomed to a life of leisure, in essence. I mean, we have massive amount of time for leisure as compared to anybody in the 16th century. In fact, in many cases, most of the people in that particular day and time, the only real leisure they ever had was when they broke away from their weekly routines to go to church. That was it, most of the time. The church usually became the local community center around which people would go, and they would have their time with other people, but then guess where they went? Back to their homes and back to their farms and back to all the life that they had and the difficulties that life presented. So the warning that is coming, that Paul gives us here, and obviously Bunyan is giving us here, is also the same. Stay awake. Be aware. Don't take for granted your trust in Christ in the midst of your leisure. In fact, you probably should adhere to the old axiom that if you don't have trouble now, you will. But now's the time to get prepared. In the midst of the good times, when life is not battering you, that's the time you should be getting ready for when it does, because it's coming. All of us, no matter how much we think we can avoid it, all of us are going to have days of suffering and struggle and difficulty, pain, diagnoses, all kinds of other things. They're coming. Now's the time to be prepared. We should have our hearts and our minds ready to say, in the midst of whatever comes, I'm still trusting you, O Lord. My focus is still on you. My heart is still fixed upon you, O God. So Bunyan puts that before us. We would be good to remember this reality. Let us not sleep, let us not slumber, but let us be prepared. So with that, the Enchanted Ground basically comes to an end. That's the point of this short little 2 paragraphs that Bunyan puts in.